analyst Tom Robinson. Okay.
Yeah, so quickly to introduce myself. So I'm Tom Robinson, and I'm the co-founder of another virtual currency exchange for the UK called BitPrice. So we've been working on this for about 6 months now. The bulk of that work has actually been on the regulatory and banking side. So together with Mark, we were at 10 Downing Street last month. We're in contact with the FCA, with the Treasury, with HMRC, really lobbying for recognition of virtual currencies and also trying to overcome this issue of a lack of access to banking.
Okay, let's take that first question. Joseph, just over here.
Hi, Gavin Slater. You talk about lots of lobbying with the government and regulators and banks and that sort of stuff, but I guess until there's lots of lobbying with merchants and people using bitcoins, I guess that's going to be the critical crossover point when the adoption really gets picked up, because until people are really using them in mainstream for goods and services exchange, then that's going to be the thing that really drives the adoption. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and one of the main issues there is getting bitcoins to people so that they can spend them with merchants. Merchants aren't going to adopt bitcoin payments if nobody's paying in it. So the first step here is to establish exchanges, establish places where people can easily, securely obtain bitcoin and other virtual currencies.
So you're saying that, I guess, if they've got the opportunity of being able to switch out of a virtual cryptocurrency into a fiat currency, that will cause them the adoption?
Yeah, on the merchant side as well, but just the consumer having the bitcoins to spend with these merchants is an issue.
So, this is a good point to speak. If you look at the different parts of the Bitcoin ecosystem and the different kind of infrastructure providers, there's mining, there's exchange, there's merchant services platforms that make it easy for businesses to accept Bitcoin. If anyone has seen the mining charts right now, the difficulty charts, we just reached 2 petahash. If anyone knows what that means, I don't think I know what that means. No, just kidding. But mining is doing phenomenal. Mining hardware providers are doing really great. Merchant services, Tony from BitPay in general, the company has gotten loads of funding. Peter Thiel funded it. They're doing great. So merchant services providers are doing awesome. Exchanges are the weakest link right now, the exchange part of it. And so if you wonder why we work so hard on the regulatory, the anti-money laundering, the banking side, it's because this is the hardest, the most attacked or most regulated aspect of Bitcoin, and it's because of that it's the weakest sector of the Bitcoin infrastructure. Everything else is doing phenomenal. If you look at some of the mining companies, I mean, ASIC Miner IPO'd at a market cap value of $500,000 a year ago, little over a year ago. Currently, it's being traded at the market cap currently is traded at $100 million. So $500K to $100 million in a little over a year. And earlier this year, they were almost at 200. So, mining companies, other companies in general, they're doing great. But exchanges are a regulatory challenge, and that's why it's something that needs to be focused on right now.
Yeah, I mean, Mark and Tom are both correct that the weak link, or the only weak link, is the exchanges. And a lot of people are in discussions with various governments in America, France and Germany and in the UK. But I'm afraid all to no avail. In America, they're going to overregulate it out of existence. France is just for the Francophiles. Germans, there's a little bit of regulation, a little bit of excitement going on there. In the UK, the FCA couldn't care less. They couldn't care less. And the only way to get it done in the UK is to almost threaten the tax authorities to say, if you don't regulate it, then you lose the income tax. So the UK is a no-no. There is one other way, that is if someone was to approach a sovereign state and say, would you be prepared to regulate it? in the same way they've done for, say, gambling and things like that, that would work. And that is something which is being done as we speak at the moment. So there is an opportunity there for a brand new Bitcoin ecosystem with a sovereign state within Europe, not in Ecuador like the other guy is talking about, not in some boat floating off Southern California, but a nation state, I think, will shortly, in the next 3 to 5 months, adopt Bitcoin and provide a robust regulation for exchanges to operate and comply with AYC, KYC, and AML. And that will then solve the weak link for Bitcoin. But that's the only way to do it.
I think I disagree a little slightly there. I think the regulatory fog will lift in the UK eventually. I think that the FCA is just taking their time about it. They want to see how Bitcoin progresses. Is it going to be a big new innovation, or will it fizzle out? But I think that the UK simply can't afford not to regulate it, not to recognise it, because they're going to miss out on a huge new industry. London is the financial capital of the world. London is a fantastic place for Bitcoin to grow and for Bitcoin businesses to be established. And I don't think they will miss the opportunity to make the UK the home of this new industry.
I agree with that. But you need someone centre. I agree with that, but you need my contacts probably go deeper than yours with the FCA, and I can't say what they are. I'm dealing at minister level in the UK, and they have told me that they are not going to regulate Bitcoin anytime soon. And I've said that you must regulate Bitcoin, although I'm anti-regulation, because if you don't regulate, you'll miss out on the opportunity. So the way I'm going about it is to try and get someone else interested, which might then entice the UK to take a second look or a third look at it. So we're all on the same page, basically.
You need regulation for the exchanges, not necessarily for the users. That should just be done like cash.
Yes. So when we talk about regulation, we're talking about regulation of Bitcoin, the use of Bitcoin as a currency. I mean, you cannot regulate Bitcoin itself. As we've seen with BitTorrent, you cannot regulate a peer-to-peer network.
Let's take another
Have you ever thought about, say, building an interest rate curve on Bitcoin and giving those data to Bloomberg or Reuters so that it's always updated lifetime?
So I know Bloomberg are trialing a Bitcoin symbol at the moment, just for the price. Is that what you mean? You're talking about interest rates?
Yeah. So that you could do, say, like bonds or mortgage business based on that.
Are you wondering if we could have Bitcoin track a certain interest rate or a certain rate?
It's treating Bitcoin as any conventional currency. So for any conventional currency, you should have an interest rate curve on that, right?
I think my colleague in front of you has something to say about this.
I mean, I can respond to that. I mean, at the moment, you can't. There are very, very few places who will lend Bitcoin. The problem is it requires trust to lend. Bitcoin's transactions are not reversible. So if I give you some Bitcoins and then you disappear, I might not ever see that back. So until there are reliable lending facilities, you can't build a rates curve.
Yeah, I think the only people who are willing to lend at Bitcoin are either two groups, and one is really, really small peer-to-peer loans, 10 Bitcoin or something like that. And then the other groups are people who will lend you Bitcoins, but they'll do it at a 300 or 3,000% interest rate, and that's not feasible. So, but yeah, it's impossible at the moment.
Okay, let's try another question. We have one.
Right, you've just talked about how the weakest link in Bitcoin system is the exchange at the moment, and I totally agree with that. And the trouble is all the exchanges are centralised, so when the government comes to regulate or wants to shut it down, they just turn up at the office and seize the server. So the ultimate would be a decentralised exchange, and there's different technologies that are trying to do that at the moment. One of them is Ripple, one of them is open transactions, and I think there's a third, I can't remember. But what do you think of Ripple now? I mean, lots of people into Bitcoin don't like Ripple. They think it's a scam because it wasn't open sourced and the coins, the XRPs, were pre-mined. But both of those problems have gone away now. So Ripple as a decentralized exchange, what do you think of that?
So it seems like not a lot of people here in the panel have looked into Ripple at all, or very much. I think it could be a great payment system or remittance system, but as a currency, I don't think anyone, even the developers, think of it as a good currency or a long-term store of value. But it could be a good payment system. Open transactions, I know a guy who is working with the guy from Open Transactions, and they seem to be doing some interesting stuff. I think open transactions will actually be more useful and interesting in contracts and automated contracts, automated insurance bonds, issuing all sorts of that legal and alternative law and alternative legal systems creation than actual exchange at this point. The best thing I think we have to a decentralized exchange is local Bitcoin, which is still a company in Finland, and so it's not decentralized, and it's also not open source. But it is the best we have at this point. I think there will eventually be more decentralization in the form of exchange, but stocks and bonds and assets and forex are also traded OTC, but there's still a centralized exchange component to them. So in the long run, you will have centralized exchanges play out in the long run. So
I think decentralized exchanges could be fantastic, but I don't see at the moment how it can actually be achieved in practice. I mean, you're still going to need some centralized body to adjudicate if there's some kind of conflict. I don't quite see how that can be automated at the moment.
With the Ripple system, they've got servers. There's only a few of them, but if it grows large enough, you'll have a consensus system, and it will be fully distributed. And that is the holy grail for Bitcoin right now. If we can solve the exchange problem, which you've all said is true, then Bitcoin's just going to go. It's going to be amazing. But how we do that, I don't know. Ripple's like the best thing I've come across, and yeah.
So what you said in those words were distributed and a bunch of servers. What it is not decentralized but federated,
yeah,
and distributed. But there's a difference between distributed and decentralized. A decentralized system actually has a client that can run a full node and just act completely independent of any servers and all that sort of thing. Ripple will never be decentralized. It might be federated very, very well, and it might be distributed very well, but we'll see if that happens, and I look forward to seeing where that goes.
About a few months ago, I mean, the exchange problem was solved. It was possible to buy Linden dollars, which is the second life virtual currency, and then once you bought Linden dollars for fiat, you could then exchange Linden dollars for bitcoins, and I nicknamed it on Twitter money lindering as opposed to money laundering. Thought that was quite amusing. But now having nicknamed it that, they've taken it away, so perhaps I shouldn't have tweeted that. But the other way is, as I said in my presentation, if you were to have a company which accepts gold can then be used to buy bitcoins, and there's no fiat money involved at all. And there is a company doing that. If you go into tobybirch.com, he's in Guernsey. He's setting up a gold Bitcoin bullion exchange, which is only exchanging gold against bullion. And the only way that governments can stop that is to shut down the entire gold and fiat market. But at the moment, that's only going to be available for wholesale people. But gold to Bitcoin would go some way towards solving the exchange problem.
We have time for just one more question. Okay.
Thanks. Is this on? Okay. Louis Smith, UCL. I just want to bring up one aspect of regulation I don't think we've touched on, and that is the self-regulation that has already emerged in some aspects of Bitcoin. So on the one hand, you have the Bitcoin Foundation in the States. I don't think there's something really equivalent here in Europe. But and then you also have ongoing rumors that there is a group of super users with large stocks of Bitcoin that are keeping the price within a certain band, and they're stabilizing the market. And so I just wanted to do you have any opinions on these kind of instances of self-regulation, and are they going to clash or undermine incoming regulation from governments?
So I've talked to several other people in the UK about setting up an SRO, self-regulatory organization. Tom, we were thinking about it. Still a possibility. Yeah, I think most SROs or the Bitcoin Foundation, which is more of a advocacy and maybe lobbyist and also supporting the developers group, most of them are pushing for government regulation. So I don't think any of these bodies will be going against government regulation of exchanges. Now, you mentioned super users, and yeah, there are a lot of people with massive amounts of Bitcoin, but it's fairly hard to manipulate the price. I think what the super users are more doing are just owning large amounts and then being very active and pushing for Bitcoin use as much as they can. We've got lots of angel investors and kind of Bitcoin millionaires just flying around the world and advocating Bitcoin use. This is great. But in terms of manipulating prices or keeping prices within a certain range, there might be a little bit of that, but I highly doubt that that's even possible or going on.
I mean, I guess it's fairly widely known who owns big blocks of Bitcoin. I mean, there's Satoshi Nakamoto for a start. Apparently owns over $100 million worth. There's the guy from Silk Road, I forget his name. He owns the FBI now owns it.
No, I don't think they have them.
Well,
the FBI owns, the FBI supposedly owns the coins that Silk Road had, but there's no mention that they've claimed the 600,000 coins, which DPR supposedly owns.
The Second Market. So Second Market now offers a Bitcoin trust vehicle, and they own over, I think it's over $4 million worth. So I don't really believe any of these conspiracy theories about super users controlling the price. Regarding the sort of self-regulatory body, I think it's a great idea. So there's something similar in the US. I think it's called Data, who are actually thinking about expanding beyond the US into the United Kingdom. So that might be a possibility.
Okay, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much, guys.